there, my fellow bonsai and tree lovers. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for joining in. If it's the first time, welcome. If you're back here for the 4 millionth time, whatever it is, how many episodes we've done of this podcast, thanks for tuning in as always. I'm Scott Martin from Bonsai Matsu. This is the Bonsai Stuff podcast, and I love you all. I really do. I was actually telling someone the other day that is not in my bonsai world. They were digging deep and saying, "Oh, bonsai, why? You know, how did you get into it? What was it about?" And I just said, "It sounds bloody weird to say it out loud, but I've always loved trees. I've always had a thing about trees my whole life, and I've talked about it before, of course. And I'm certain everyone listening to this podcast would have the same feeling. But it was just weird to say it out loud to someone who's not in the same space as we are. To say that, yeah, I got into bonsai because of my fascination and desire to be around trees, and the thought of being able to help them to live forever and make them a beautiful piece of art as well. It's like the perfect storm for me. Anyway, enough of that. Too excited. So thanks for listening in. I'm going to have a chat this episode about a couple of different things that have sparked my interest lately. One of them is talking about Yamadori and non-Yamadori stock that we work with, and setting some realistic expectations. And I'll dig a bit deeper into it, but it basically came from bonsai show that I was at recently when I was in Italy, and looking at the trees and having a look at them, and the ones that took out the chocolates were invariably wild trees, Yamadori, collected trees. And I don't want to get into all the legal stuff in this section of the podcast about whether they, ethical stuff, whether they should be collected in the first place. But I want to talk about when you acquire stock that's not Yamadori, that's not wild collected trees, and you've got a vision in your head to make it look like these Yamadori that pop up around the world, and just to set some realistic expectations. Also, another recent story I want to talk about when one of your trees, one of your bonsai, gets a terminal issue, and what you can do about it, and how you can sort of say goodbye and move forward, and maybe try and prevent it in the first place. Not that you can always. So I want to talk about that in the podcast. So strap yourselves in and let's get into it. I love this podcast. I really do. I love the fact that I have this platform, this forum, or this space where you and I can sort of talk, or I can talk, but I can hear you, and I get comments back all the time about different things, and good and bad. The moss one that seemed to get a few people talking. Why are you removing moss? It looks so great. Anyway. I love it. I love the interaction that we get, and I love it when people reach out for help, or just for a second opinion. Not necessarily saying that whatever I tell you to do, you do, and I don't always expect you to do. But it's just such a positive place where I don't know. I feel like we'd sort of work together to both enjoy bonsai a lot more. That's you and that's me. I enjoy it a hell of a lot more because of this podcast, to be honest. Anyway, so the show, like I was saying in the intro, there was a show, beautiful trees on display, magic. Even in sales area, looking at the trees, some of the ones that really took my attention, you could tell that they were wild trees. And when you compare those wild trees, Yamadori, or anything that's collected from the wild, you're comparing the impact that Mother Nature has had on that tree over however long. It could be quite a long time, to be honest. And you're comparing that sort of an impact to a piece of nursery stock that you come across that you think, yeah, it's great. There's no way that we can compete with Mother Nature. There's no way. No way that exposure to the elements, the hot, the cold, the wind over very long periods of time that shape and create interest in those wild trees. There's no way that we can do that over our lifetime. And that's the thing. Like, I looked at these trees that were collected, and some of them, without aging them, you'd look at them and think they're at least a couple hundred years old, these things. And like I said, I have my reservations about collecting trees from the wild. I went from an opinion that, it's great, like it's having access to that stuff's brilliant, and what an opportunity if we could do it in Australia. But we have some pretty strict laws here, and even on private property, even with permission, all those things taken into account, there's not honestly much space for us to be able to collect native species that way. Weeds, olives, radiated pines, that sort of stuff. Yeah, ash, with permissions and blah blah blah, all that stuff. I don't want to get bogged down with it. There's ways to do it, but to be able to collect native species like that, I don't know. I don't know if there's any legit way that I know of that it can happen. I'm sure maybe other people out there in the bonsai world may know a way to get around it. Whether they should or not, it's another thing. But anyway, so getting back to this show and looking at trees that you could tell had been nursery grown, whether they'd been, grown in the ground to thicken up, whatever, they just don't have that characteristic of a tree that's been growing with Mother Nature beating the hell out of it every day of its life over a very long period of time in extremely harsh conditions and growing extremely slowly. When we look at growing trees, one of the questions, when you look at forums, it's like, how do I quickly get this tree from here to there? How do I grow it as fast as I can? When these trees are growing in the wild, their growth position may be somewhere that they really don't get a lot of nutrients and they grow very, very slowly, and that adds to the character of these things. And they're very dense, and they're designed, their deadwood is designed to last forever because it's so thick and dense that it's compacted over a period of time that we'd never be able to replicate it. Not in 10 lifetimes. There's no way man could ever make it look like that. And I've seen a lot of carving. I've done a hell of a lot of carving. But you compare some natural deadwood that's occurred over an extremely long period of time, and you look at anything that anyone around this world has ever done that I've ever seen, and some get very close. Some are very, very skilled at it that I've seen from overseas and around the traps, but it's never what Mother Nature does to these trees. So when I was mulling this over a couple of cold beverages while I was traveling through Italy and making notes for the podcast, it was like, so how do we achieve that? And I was sitting there and I was going round and round in circles, like how do we take something that's grown in a nursery to be like these trees? And then I thought that's the wrong approach. I think what the right approach to talk about is to set expectations. So while we can try, while we can do whatever we can to sort of mimic and get close-ish to what these Yamadori can represent, we, in my opinion, I don't think we can ever actually fully get there. So I get asked I get sent a lot of photos, and I get a photo of a tree saying, "Hey, I love this style. I love this tree. This is amazing. This is my favorite tree in the world." Perfect, great, okay. And the next photo is a starter stock or a tree that's been in training, and it's like got sort of a similar looking trunk, but it might be 5, 10, 15 years old, something like that. And it's like, okay, so I want to take it from that to the gold tree. It's like, that's cool. It's nice to have a plan, like a vision for what you want to do, but it's really important to set expectations, to not shatter your bonsai dreams, to not become disheartened when you look at it and go, I've been doing this tree for 10 years and it's nowhere near my target tree. I just want to tell you, it never will. It never will get to that point. In my opinion, there is no way we can compete with Mother Nature, and I don't think that we should. Definitely we can look at these things and we can marvel in their beauty and we can be amazed. Here in Australia, I don't think that we can look to have that sort of stock in our collection and still be able to sort of sleep at night because it digging up trees that are a couple hundred years old to take out of their place in beautiful nature. It's not my cup of tea. I'd much rather walk around and see these things. And there's a few Australian artists that definitely post beautiful photos of trees in the wild, and they make me smile when I see that a bonsai lover that is doing what I'm doing as a bonsai professional. They post these beautiful trees out in Mother Nature, and you see them, and it's just that warms the cockles of my heart seeing that sort of stuff, because you look at these things and they can be 500,000 years old, whatever they are, mate, it's irrelevant. But you look at them in their natural environment, it's like 5, 6, 7 generations down the track, that tree's still going to be there. Like, it survived through God knows what to still be standing right there in front of all of us when we walk in front of these trees, and we should be all able to enjoy the beautiful trees in nature. And it shouldn't just be someone looks at it, that's magnificent, or I'm going to dig this out and put it in my bonsai collection, and it might turn up at a bonsai show, or a handful of people might see it. That's my issue with it, is the beauty of those trees that have been sculpted by nature should be available for all of us to see. And I'm talking specifically about about our natives in the wild. That's like I said, the non-indigenous trees that are pests. I have no issue removing those from the natural environment whatsoever. Don't get me wrong. I've got no problems with digging up trees, but I'm talking about our beautiful natives growing in wild that would be brilliant bonsai, and they'd be world-class trees. I think keeping them in that wild where we can go, not just us. When I'm dust, hopefully my great grandkids can walk past exactly the same tree, and hopefully one of them feels about it the way that I feel. They can put their hand on it and feel the energy of that tree surge through them, and that's brilliant. That makes the hair stand up on my arms, because that's something that's really special for all of us. But if you are looking at trees in any forum or shows or whatever, I just strongly encourage you to take it on board and set your targets. No problem. Set up that bonsai database in your head of things that you like and styles that you like and designs that you like, but don't become disheartened. Don't become disappointed. Don't let your path, your enjoyment of your bonsai and your trees that you have in front of you right now be dissipated or watered down because you look at something and think, oh, I want it to be like that, but it's just not getting there because it's unrealistic. It's it's just never going to happen in our lifetime for trees that aren't managed or that grow in that environment over an extremely long period of time. A harsh environment produces the most beautiful results, which is incredible. It's a brilliant thing. So anyway, Yamadori versus man-made or man-grown stock in any form. I think that there's definitely a disparity, a difference between the two. And I would strongly encourage you as a bonsai practitioner, a bonsai lover, not to become sad about it or disheartened, because there's no way we can compete with Mother Nature. Now, as bonsai people, all of us, this is every single person that's involved with bonsai, no matter whether you see yourself as someone who's happy with one tree sitting in their backyard, or you've got 450 trees at the highest level in your backyard, I put us all into the same category that we're lovers of beauty in one shape or another. And what that beauty is personal. It's how we see beauty, not how someone else dictates it. My thoughts on design and the structure of your trees and all that sort of stuff. But we are lovers of beauty, and that the word love is one of the most powerful words that I think that we have in our vocabulary in all shapes. The way you you love your family, the way you love your partner, the way you love your kids. You know, I don't just drop the word bonsai lovers lightly. I honestly put, well, for me, I put my trees into that category that I do. I love them. And I love bonsai all round. And I love what bonsai does for us. I love what bonsai gives back to us. And that leads me into the next heartbreaking section of the podcast, which is when you have a terminal issue with your bonsai. This happened very recently, where I've been working with someone who I think listens to the podcast, and we've been managing fungal issues on a tree, which are always the most horrible of things to deal with. And in particular, it was, I believe, a wilt-related issue. And once you come across wilt of any kind, and many of you will have an experience with wilt where possibly you've taken cuttings or you've planted seedlings, or, you know, sadly, as in this case, maybe a mature tree had contracted the issue, and you know that even though you try your hardest, you do everything within your arsenal to try and stop it and cure it. And cure is probably the right word. It's most likely, and like I said, it's very sad, this part of the podcast, but I'm trying to be, we'll call this the realistic podcast, but because when you come across a wilt issue, it's you may be able to hold back the tide for a little bit, but you won't be able to stop it forever. And ultimately, once the tree's vascular system starts to shut down, it may start a bit slower than normal, might take years, and you may be pushing it. Sometimes it'll be good, then other times something will happen. In this case, it was the summer period comes in and stress hits the tree, and then bang, it suddenly creates an issue where the water's not flowing like it should be because of the wilt, and everything starts to droop and turns, you know, black and brown and dies off. And it's just really unfortunate that if you ever have had that happen in any shape, I have definitely had it happen with cuttings and seedlings, where you'll plant, you know, maybe 50 cuttings or whatever, and you look around and then suddenly there's half a dozen around the place that have turned black. Everything was growing nicely, and all of a sudden it just turns black. And it's like, okay, all right, that's wilt. Look, we need to isolate. We need to, you know, whatever, manage it as best we possibly can. But there's no way we're going to save those cuttings. With the cutting, it's easy because you've really got very little attachment with it, and you can put it into the green bin pretty easily and move on. But when it happens to be a very special tree, then that hurts. That really, really hurts. And I'm here to sort of, you know, lift your chin up and say, when these things happen, it's not always your fault. You know, these things happen in nature, and we try and do our very best. And these trees can have a lot of sentimental value. They can be monetary value as well. They can be expensive trees. And when it happens, it's sort of like it's a real kick in the guts. And it's like you reflect back on yourself. You look at how things have happened. You know, it may have been there before you acquired the tree. It could have been in the tree's system for 10 years, 15 years, and it's slowly been getting worse and worse and worse to the point that it gets to a tipping point where the tree just cannot fight it anymore, and it's just like, that's it, that's enough. So it's normal, it's natural, it happens. Don't let it be more than that. You know, don't review, of course, whenever I say that all the time, whenever something goes wrong, have a look, see if there's some way that you could fix it. And that's what I want to talk about too, is like, not that, and I'm not inferring that there's bad housekeeping or bad habits when it comes to these things getting into the tree, because you can have a perfect environment, a sterile environment, and still have these things happen. That's the nature of the world that we live in. So all we can do is try and minimize and try and help as much as we possibly can, and housekeeping. And now, you know, look around the yard, with, you know, right at the end of the autumn fall period, and there's bloody leaves everywhere. all over the floor. No matter how much I clean up, there's still more falling from the trees around the yard, and they're getting to the end. But these things have to be cleaned up. The housekeeping, and it takes time. I find it one of the most painful chores for me. I'd rather weed, to be honest, than scoop up fallen leaves off the ground and take them off the bench and remove them from the foliage of the trees, because these fungal issues can be on these trees that are blocks away, a long way away from the house. The wind picks up the leaf, blows it all in. That leaf then lands in one of my trees right in the intersection of the foliage, and fungal issues spread. And suddenly I've got a problem with my tree that wasn't there before, and it's like the environment's perfect. Like, I cleaned the leaves out, but I didn't get this one out, and it sat there, and it was in a sheltered area, and it was there long enough for that leaf to take hold. So it's it is really important to be on top of the housekeeping. Make sure that your trees have got plenty of airflow. Look at the benches. Make sure they're not jam-packed with trees. If they're jam-packed, build more benches, or move stock on. Just spread it out a little bit, especially as we're getting towards this dormancy time where it's a lot more humid and the daylight hours are a lot less. These fungal issues tend to really take hold over this next 3 or 4 months. So you've got to be on guard that everything you can do is done accurately. Watch your watering. Make sure the trees are getting enough without getting too much. Don't weaken the tree's system by causing root rot, by overwatering the roots on the tree. So it gets you've got to stay on top of a lot of things. But that debris removal is really important. And I know it's not a popular topic for people to talk about, but preventative fungal spraying is really high on my agenda. I put it out there, and by all means, I agree that everyone can have different opinions on it, and that's cool. No issue whatsoever. And I'm happy to chat about it with anyone that wants to contact me. But from my point of view, I don't use harsh, nasty chemicals. I use the safest possible, the ones that are legally available. No special concoctions mixed up here. Everything's by the book to the exact requirements as per the manufacturer. So I'm not doing anything over and above, but I find that trying to be on the front foot, I can only talk about my garden, my trees, my bonsai. Fungal issues for me, touch wood, aren't really a consistent issue for me, because I am on the front foot with my housekeeping. I do look at my benches when they get full and try and shuffle things around. I do stay on the front foot with my preventative spraying as well. I don't wait till there's an issue to suddenly take hold, because these issues, once they are in the tree system, it can take quite a while for them to be represented, for you to visibly be able to see them. And by the time that happens, it's like, okay, the clock's been ticking for however long now. Like I said earlier, you might be able to slow it down a little bit, but the chances of actually getting in there and knocking it on the head are really, really, really tough, really, really hard. And I don't mean to be overly dramatic, but it's not about do the best you can. Always do the best you can, but don't let yourself be punished because these things happen. It's outside your control. You can be sad about it. Definitely can be sad about it. I'm sad when I hear these stories. Devastated, in fact, and it just makes me even more vigilant with what I do around the yard for my trees, because it's like, that can happen to that beautiful tree that's been around for a long time and been really developed magnificently. If that can happen there, that can happen anywhere. And if it does, I'd be absolutely shattered. So I feel your pain. Don't let it take the wind out of your sails. Try and do everything you possibly can to make sure that you prevent it from happening in the first place, which is a lot of it's proper repotting, making sure your trees are strong. It's all the stuff that we tick boxes on. It's fertilizing during the growing periods. It's making sure we've got good airflow. It's watering is a massive one. Whenever trees get stressed, these issues generally come out, and they come out. Yes, it's during the hot periods we see it, but normally that can stem back to repotting. Was it done? Is it overdue? Was the repotting done to a certain standard? What soil mix was used? Have the, whatever. It's all that stuff that can really compound together to then make a perfect storm where these issues can then just go bang, take over and do what they're going to do. But anyway, terminal issues, not always about you. Do the best you possibly can. Make sure you're on the front foot and don't be slack. Be vigilant with this stuff and try and hold it back and prevent it from happening in the first place is the best advice I can give you. But when it does happen, don't hang your head too hard, okay? So now we're wrapping up the autumn period, or fall, depending on where you are around this beautiful globe that we live on. And I had worked on a few of my deciduous, in particular one that was put up on social media, Big Trident Maple, and I was asked a question about why I removed the leaves, because they were all beautiful coloured, looked great, took a video, photos, whatever, then got in and removed the leaves and I was asked why that I did that. And so I thought I'd just spend a couple of minutes explaining why now around this, just before we get into the winter dormancy period, why I do that on some of my deciduous trees. And the reason being that from my perspective, one, I like to get up close and personal to the tree. And there's nothing like seeing a naked deciduous tree and the structure and looking at what's too thick, what's too long, even though the silhouette looked nice with all the leaves on it, when you remove the leaves, you look at it and go, oh, that's too long, that's too thick, that needs to be fixed, that's growing the wrong way, wire shape, whatever. So if you did that when the leaves had naturally fallen off and the tree is dormant, then you're pruning the tree, right? Which is what I did. I removed the leaves, gave it a prune, sorted a few structural issues out, and posted a photo of the tree naked with no leaves on it. If you do that during the winter period, when it's dormant, when there's no leaves on it, the tree, it's not a growing period, right? The two growing periods, spring, autumn, or fall, they're the growing periods for the year. Summer, I don't consider to be growing because it gets too hot. The trees start to go into a dormancy period, although they do grow on and off during summer. But during winter, they definitely don't grow the deciduous. And I'm only talking about deciduous here, not our natives or pines or anything like that, or evergreens. I'm just talking about deciduous. Once those leaves are gone, the tree goes dormant, so therefore it stops growing, which means once it stops that growing period, it stops having the ability to heal the wounds that you make when you prune it. All right, so I'm not talking about taking major branches off or anything like that. I'm talking about twiggy growth and maybe a few thicker ones here and there around the branches. So by doing that just prior to the dormancy, prior to the tree going into dormancy, losing all its leaves, I get to make the decision on what gets cut off, knowing the tree's still got time to heal the wounds that I've just made so that it doesn't bleed sap during the whole dormancy period. So I really like this time when I get to look at it like it is dormant, but it's still got the ability to heal what I've done. Removing the leaves also allows for some sunlight to get in there, airflow, fungal issues like we just talked about, but it allows sunlight to get into those inner areas, which means that when spring comes around, that bud conveyor that I talk about, that gets to take off back closer in towards the trunk, and I'm not just stuck with all these buds on the outside of the tree. And I get to really work on the most important part, which is the structure. Like I said, I get to, if it's too long, if it's too thick, I get to sort that stuff out now. I don't have to look at the tree for 3 months, wait till spring gets here and then make those cuts. I can do it right now, right here, right now. And it's, it just helps me push the tree towards that dormancy period by not having leaves on it. So a couple of things. Once you've removed the leaves on the tree, transpiration, the flow of water through the tree and evaporation out the foliage obviously doesn't really happen, but the roots, I wouldn't just ignore them and not water the tree. Just keep an eye on it. If it looks like it's starting to dry out during this funky period just before we get to the wetter time and the colder time, just be careful that you're giving them water. Overnight temperatures are a hell of a lot lower. Now it's freezing at night and down to minus Celsius, a couple of nights, and then single digits for a lot of it, but during the day it can warm up and get to 18, 19, 20 degrees and be beautiful and sunny. So watering's a bit of an issue at the moment. Just spot water the ones, as I've said, which ones need to be done. But that's why I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about why I remove the foliage on my deciduous right just before we get to the winter dormancy period. Well, folks, that's it. We're done for another episode of the Bonsai Stuff podcast. Thank you very much for listening in. Greatly appreciated. And I say it a lot, but I really do appreciate the subscribers to the podcast. Thank you very much. I think of you when I prepare this podcast, and I think of you as I put it all together, that it wouldn't be possible without you. So thank you very much. Also, reach out. If you want to have a chat about anything bonsai related, then I'm always here. And you can get me through any of the social media, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And if you want to hit me up on WhatsApp as well, then jump on the website bonsaimatsu.com, get my mobile and message me, because it's I'm available to chat about anything bonsai, and hopefully I can make you appreciate and love bonsai a slither as much as what I do, because the world will be a better place if there were more tree lovers around the place. Anyway, thanks for listening in. Love it as always. Stick around. Plenty more to come for the year. I have a lot that I work on with this podcast and plan, and I'm constantly on my phone tapping in little notes. Let me talk about this. Let me talk about that. So stick around. There's a lot more to come. Thanks for listening. Love you as always. Give them a cuddle for me because they need it right now. It's getting cold outside at night. Until next time, happy bonsai.